Hey everyone, my name is Marius. I work in cybersecurity at Nord Security. My primary focus of the company is basically do all jack of all trades. I do mostly everything in every part that is necessary in cybersecurity, which one of those things is EDR. And our primary focus in this talk is to discuss quickly what is an EDR and how does it work, and then how did we, as a SOC team, collaboratively, decided that assessing our current EDR solution would be necessary and why, and then last minute business decision that we made so that our EDR migration has to occur within 20 hours, and how did that happen? So to start off, what is an EDR? There were a lot of talks about EDR Marius security products, but one of the basic things that I could say is just awesome antivirus software. It's basically an expensive one, but an awesome one. Why? Because it has more than a simple antivirus software, but in various different areas. For example, it is able to protect endpoints, but while doing so, it's able to perform various actions such as isolation or enable us as a SOC team to perform various operations in providing various tactical decisions that we can do on site of the endpoint. And another big thing for an EDR is that we can correlate all the data from all the endpoints into one data lake, and out of it, we can do queries. For example, if I wish to know how many FileZillas do we have installed on our EDR, I can do it with few questions inside of the data lake, and I can figure it out. Furthermore, I can see all the processes, all the network connections, and everything that's going on across a whole fleet of our endpoints. And that enables two things. First, visibility, and second, the EDR itself, which is on every single endpoint, is capable then performing multitudes of actions, such as if one endpoint, let's say 1,151, gets infected, and then it pivots to another one, we can see exactly how he was able to pivot from one point to another, and then see the whole kill chain, let's say. So that's where it basically shines the best. Furthermore, why, given the fact that EDR does such things as I said that we had, why would we consider migrating? Well, first thing is that we had our old EDR for about 2 years. We were kind of happy with it. It does what we want, but in some cases it lacks. So simple answer was we were curious. We were curious to figure out why other EDR solutions might be better. What significant differences there are between one or another? For example, does it have better security? And if so, how would we measure that? Testing and marketing? Maybe, but perhaps doing proper red teaming within our company to figure out what exactly do we have and what exactly do we want is the solution. Furthermore, does it have better response? Perhaps we can access more API, let's say, calls within our own automations. Maybe we can do some type of novel ways of orchestrating all the action that's needed to be done. Maybe faster access to data lake, because our old EDR, it was kind of difficult. How? Because let's say I have a question, the person that I had, for example, I want to find FileZilla. I would kind of have to write my own SQL, and it's kind of difficult. But if it was easier, then it would take less time, and I probably could query more and more and more stuff, and also other colleagues of mine could do the same. So that was kind of the gotcha that we had at the old one, and we thought maybe other solutions have better, let's say, prospects in that case. Furthermore, improved speed towards resolution. That was kind of, in some cases in our company, that we have a malware incident, but it appears after 6 hours. Why? Maybe it's a bug, maybe it's a feature, I don't know. But in some cases, those things happened, and it was not necessarily correlated within each other. That's also kind of a solution. So we wish to figure those questions out. And so we did. Furthermore, we asked ourselves questions before testing. What would we look at the other EDRs so that we'd be able to know how they are functioning? And one of the things was that, for example, can we block specific DNS queries? It seems like a simple answer. You have some type of configuration. Let's say you don't want to visit a particular website. You try to visit it, and it blocks. It doesn't always work. There are some edge cases there. For example, USB-specific devices. Yep, it works, but in a very particular way. If you reboot your macOS device, you can access the USB device. Why? It's just because how it's implemented. For example, how many data sources does it collect? That's a good question. How many data sources you are overall are able to see when the data is coming. And sometimes having more data doesn't necessarily mean it's better because it's not very much cleaned up. So you also have to investigate that. Furthermore, for example, can you monitor Windows registry changes? In some cases, in our testing, some EDRs just didn't bother to even give this information. Some did, and some did very well with that. So these questions were kind of the ones that we were focused on, but not entirely the ones that we asked, given what we saw. So yeah, we did assess the EDR that we had, and our assessment, let's say, process was kind of designed by me, and I thought throughout what exactly do I care, and then my team, and then even the IT team cares about the EDR. And those were the 4 topics, was basically an initial analysis. Does the current EDR functionality exist in another EDR that we're testing? Just because, for example, we have one functionality and it would be missing for us, and maybe it's critical. So that was relevant to find out. Furthermore, red team testing, it's not, let's say, as cool as it sounds, but we did some type of attack vectors for each of the operating systems, for each of EDRs, and technically we did like 12 red team testings for all of EDR that we were testing just to figure out that we want what exactly and how exactly and where exactly does it protect and what kind of gotchas there is. Ease of use, very important, because if it takes you from question to answer to go from data lake, for example, you want to figure out what is FileZilla and from where it was loaded for that particular endpoint, ease of use is kind of important because it might take you 20 minutes to write that query, while in other EDR, you just bump and you're there, just because it has beautiful interface to do those things. And EDR management. That is a very important thing for me personally, because I was the one that was managing all the issues. And for example, if you have an issue with an EDR and you are not able to properly debug it because there is not really that many debugging tools within the EDR solution, what am I supposed to do? Am I just supposed to reverse engineer that? I try, it doesn't work because I'm not good at it. And I mean, I'm not saying it's the one thing that matters, but it's a lot of these little things that come and go when you test various different EDRs. So, for example, initial analysis. For example, does it have the functionality to isolate a device from a network? Simple question, does it have that? So we did that and we tested that. Is it a yes? Is it a no? Is it a maybe? And all of these various different questions. For example, as I told before, can you block a specific USB device? Because sometimes, for some people, you want to block all the USB devices, but sometimes you want to unblock the specific one because that one has some type of, let's say, confidential information or something like that. Furthermore, how many data sources does it collect? As I said before, it depends. It's sometimes relevant, sometimes not. But we just took what documentation told us. Let's say it collects 100 data sources, 100. And we just did that arbitrary type of thing in testing and so on and so forth. Furthermore, we did perform red teaming testing. And all these questions were kind of the thing that you wanted to ask from our limited testing, because just be honest, we had to test like 5 EDRs and to perform proper red teaming testing on them to figure out exactly how they work. It's not an easy task. So we took some of the things that we wish to get, and for example, can you bypass the EDR? What I mean by bypass EDR is that, let's say you have a macOS device, you have etc.host files. What if you just block the IP address of it? Yep, you can't talk to it, but some EDRs allow that. Some say, wait, you don't even touch that part, and it gives us an alert. For example, ransomware attack, that depends. Some cases, some EDRs have proper solutions to do those things. In other cases, if, let's say, you have a specific folder and you're using known ransomware attack, just, you adjusted the payload, added some things, or removed some things, it won't detect it. And it doesn't matter, because some EDRs is relevant in the, let's say, the whole big picture. Are you starting from the C directory? Yes? No? We don't care. So, for example, what about the application that we don't want to have? Can you block those things? It depends. Most EDRs does that pretty well. How, for example, unknown malware. Like, I just open up my Kali Linux, I use a mess of Venom, I build a payload quickly enough, I use some custom shellcode stuff to make that happen. And does it detect? In some cases, it doesn't. But in some cases, it does. And that also very much depends on the operating system, which EDR has to cover, because it has 3 operating systems to cover if you're counting the desktops, but if you're counting also mobile phones, it's iOS and Android. And to cover all that scope in testing, it's kind of hard. Furthermore, EDR management. So for example, one of the things that we did a lot in our previous EDR is basically writing our own custom detection rules. So we had some type, let's say, edge cases where development people were doing some development stuff, and there were some edge cases where the whitelist had to be done, but we didn't want them to be bypassed, so we had to kind of write our own rules, exclusions. That's really important whenever you deploy an EDR. It will happen that it blocks normal software just because it does. Why? It depends. Maybe it has some malicious actions, maybe it previously was a null, or maybe it kind of is a gray area, and for it, it's malware and so blocked. So you have to do those exclusions. Deployment configuration, that was very important because I remember there was one EDR that we tried to deploy. It took us 2 hours. We deployed it, and afterwards, we tried to remove it. It took us 6 hours, just because it was complicated, and it was macOS, and it didn't work exactly as the documentation said. Is it on EDR part? Maybe. I'm not saying the names, but it happens. For example, next thing, ease of use. How easy it is to be proficient in it after, let's say, a week's worth of work. And based upon my testing and my team's testing, every single EDR product, you can be proficient enough in it within a week when you have, let's say, a baggage of already pre-existing security knowledge, or how the computer works, or how to investigate the logs. That was kind of okay, per se. And so what were in total differences between all the EDRs? Simply put, they all are okay. They do their job, but the differences are in the details. For example, does the current EDR functionality exist in the ones that we were testing? And all of them, yes. There is not really that many differences. Does the protection and its works better? It depends. In some cases, on macOS devices, it works better, but only on the particular attack vectors that we tested, while others worked in their world. So you're kind of trading one attack possibility for another, and you kind of have to know what environment are we in so that these things would happen. Furthermore, is the EDR management improved? For that one EDR that I said that took us 4 hours to 2 hours to install and then to remove for 8 hours, that's one exception. Otherwise, everything was pretty okay. And how quickly can we become proficient? Max 1 week for all EDRs. And then the total conclusion that our assessment told us is that it's not necessary to switch EDRs because the differences are minimal. We already invested enough man-hours into optimizing, investigating, analyzing, and understanding how our current works. And so we told our management, look, it's not necessary because we know how this works. We tested every other EDR. The differences are minimal. There are quirks for every one of them because it's a complicated software. It requires such things to be done. And so we just moved on. But last-minute business decision. It was made, and was told that we will have to migrate to another EDR. And we had only one question to ask. When are we going to do it? We had two options. One option, do it within 24 hours, because our existing EDR would expire. Let's say it was on Friday, so I think on weekend it would be already done. And another option, extend current EDR and migrate over some, let's say, I don't know, 2 months or 3 months and so on. I knew already the answer, but as a cautious person, I did assessment of what could happen given what we know. Worst case scenario, company is done. Nobody can do any work. Work stopped, causes bugs everywhere. Nothing is working just because of the EDR's functionality and where it goes into operations. You can cause a lot of problems, development issues, and so on and so on. Mid-case scenario, around 20% of them might experience critical issues, while another 30% minor. This is based upon our first EDR testing that we had, because first, let's see, we're testing first EDR and we kind of had issues, and it was the most complicated one. And another best case scenario, no impact. Less than 10% of all endpoints would be affected in some way. So we had 3,500 endpoints in total. And the decision was made to migrate them in 24 hours on Friday. Why? Because it was possible. Why not? I knew what I knew because I did the testing with my colleagues. We had all the information available to us. We did proper testing. Let's say I get EDR, I do all the assessments, I read all the documentation, I know mostly everything about it because I know what I want. And so I said, yeah, just do it. So the first thing that happened at work, I came at work at 8 a.m. and we had a 1 hour and a half meeting to discuss responsibilities because we thought that if we have between security team and IT team direct and clear responsibilities of what exactly do we need to do, then everything else would be easy because proper communication is key to everything. So why not just communicate it directly? So for example, for us, we had basically 4 roles, which is simplified, but 4 roles: prepare statistics, new configuration, troubleshooting, monitoring, and communication. So from our side, our security team did all the communication. And also the communication part is in regards to the whole company. How do we going to communicate that, look, in 24 hours, we are going to migrate big software, big tooling solution to something else. So we first did, we contact every single manager. We told them, look, this is going to happen. These are the likely issues. And if any issue happens, contact us directly. And then we did the global communication for all the employees. Because why? One, if the employee has questions, he will likely go to manager. And if the manager knows the question, the likely guy won't come to us. So we have less, let's say, work to do in writing simple queries to answer. And furthermore, troubleshooting, monitoring, both us and IT team had these responsibilities because we were in scene. We had to be aware that issues are happening so that if that's the case, we should stop deployment, fix the issue, and continue. So quickly, prepare statistics, what I did, and me with a colleague, what I did was simply, we collected all the data in simple Google Sheet, and we had 3 options. Yes, migrated. No, not migrated. B, migrated. So that's it. Communication, as already told. And then I got an email at 11 a.m. for new EDR configuration that was available with panel and everything. And like I already configured it as a deployment practice when I was testing it, so I just redid everything. Took me like 20, 40 minutes to do so. I then went to IT team and told them everything that I know. They prepared their MDM solution. So they upload the binaries to relevant services. And they configured specifically macOS profile to enable the EDR installation, because that is the biggest gotcha that I learned personally, is that if you have an EDR and that EDR has to be installed on macOS, macOS already has to have a particular profile inside of it, which has to be configured by us so that it would enable that EDR product with all the required access to properly function. Otherwise, there's kind of gotchas, and in some cases, it can break machine. Furthermore, collaboration with the security team, so they had to collaborate with us, obvious, and then MDM and policy management. They had to manage all the policies and if the endpoint is installed or not. So that's what we did. We discussed this. It made sense to us, and we just went for it. Migration process, simple. You remove all DDR, you push MDM policy, which means install. It's installed the new DDR, and then you check if it's done. So what we did in this case is kind of because we were limited in time, and I assumed that it would be better for us to do in batches. So what we did, we took macOS, Windows, and Linux, and we did 100, 100, 100. And let's say we remove 100 devices from Windows, we push MDM policies, we verify that the old EDR is removed, we install new policy, which new EDR, we check if it is installed, and then just we continue the loop. And we loop, we go, and mostly everything goes well. I'll talk about gotchas that happened, but given the fact that migration was happening on Friday, that doesn't mean that it's over. We had to transfer all of the exclusions. We had to write our custom rules once again for that new EDR. We had to adjust our internal response processes as a SOC, how exactly we are solving this. We had to readjust to the new system because some people weren't working exactly with the testing procedures, but most of them did. And then implementing integrations. That was kind of the most important one and hurt me the most because I've written a lot of automations on it, and the whole API changed. I had to write my own wrappers around it and all of that stuff. But given the fact that post-migration was kind of okay, we just move on to finalize the migration. And basically what we learned is that out of 3,500 endpoints, 3,150 were successfully migrated. Out of those 10% of endpoints, which is around 350, only 5% had issues. Other people, where they were on vacation. They were chilling or maybe sick, but they didn't even bother to open communication channel because their computer was off entire Friday. That wasn't kind of a big issue for us because it happens, and the ones that had issues, it was kind of fun, I'm not gonna lie. When we were installing on one of the Windows endpoints, I kind of get a message, oh look, I got a blue screen of death on Windows. I'm like, okay, what's gonna happen? And we figured it out that in registry changes, that when the old EDR removes itself and you have USB blocking enabled, if the registry's changes doesn't go from 0 to 1 in a particular field, it crashes the whole system. When you reboot it, you can't even use any USB devices. System is kind of crashed, no connectivity, etc., etc. So our solution, we kind of figured out what's happening, and we just wrote quick PowerShell, and we spin up in our MDM solution, and we did it on cron jump. Let's see, run this command on every single machine 5 minutes, so that if the machine gets online, it gets the command to execute, it runs the PowerShell, and likely we will mitigate the issue. Other two issues were kind of simple. EDR on installation issues. In some cases, you had to spam that button up to get him to uninstall itself, because in some cases, if the EDR is performing protection in some regard or alerting something, it cannot be removed because it's doing its job. So you just have to spam it to stop protecting, even if in the configuration you told him to stop protecting. It's kind of gotchas. Another thing in our MDM, sometimes it didn't push the commands to install just because we were abusing it a lot, and it had a lot of load, so it was kind of hard for it to process all the requests that was coming in. But after that, we just kind of figured it out and we went with it. And tips to kind of summarize everything, I'm just going to say it, just do it. Why not? It's fun. It's Friday. Why not just have whole deployment by then? But in all seriousness, if you did your homework right, let's say you did test it properly, then you know what you're doing. And if the communication is in your company and within your team, and especially within the IT team, is on the same page, there is no issues, because you know what's going to happen, and you already kind of have preventative measures for those because you have proper communication, and there are no issues. So that's kind of it. Thank you.